Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Yashoda Vandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padurjikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padurjikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 25th day of October, 2023 in San Diego. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, and we're on text 62, the bottom of page 128. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangas Teshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Jugal. Vishayan Pungsa. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Vadimano. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangat Setu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Jesse, you want to try? Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Not yet, Abhi? Okay. Sorry, Jesse, we have two Jessies tonight. She's also Jessie. He thought I was calling on it. Okay, word by word. Dhyayataha, while contemplating. Vishayan, sense objects. Pungsaha, of a person. Sangaha, attachment. Teshu, in the sense objects. Upajayate, develops. Sangat, from attachment. Sanjayate, develops. Kamaha, desire. Kamat, from desire. Krodaha, anger. Abhijayate, becomes manifest. Translation. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Purport. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, page 129. But when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi. But Haridas easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not, therefore, in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So let's go back and we're going to see the context of this, what Krishna is saying here. This chapter is called the Contents of the Gita Summarized. So it's covering all the subjects in the Gita in summary form, a little bit at a time. So Krishna is describing this process of buddhi yoga. So buddhi yoga, Prabhupada says at one point, is nothing but Krishna consciousness, but it emphasizes the position of the intelligence. Buddhi means intelligence. So it means that the intelligence is cultivated in Krishna consciousness, just like we're reading this book and we're thinking about it and discussing. That's the use of the intelligence. That's what happens. Why is that important? Because the intelligence is just right near the soul. And below the intelligence is the mind, and below the mind is the senses. When the intelligence can be strengthened in Krishna consciousness, then it's the higher self controlling the lower self. This will become very clear at the end of the next chapter, 3. Because we're actually in a battle. You know, once we understand who we are, what we are in the material world, we're spirit, and we're in a body made of matter, and that body has senses, and the whole process of devotional service, as mentioned in the phrase Krishna consciousness, it's the emphasis on the consciousness, to change the consciousness. So in the ordinary material life, the consciousness is absorbed in matter because the senses that we have, which are like reflections of our original spiritual senses. And these senses are programmed, if you will. They're designed to be attracted to different sense objects. There's sound, there's sight, there's touch, there's taste, like that, feeling and smell. So the reason we're here, not in the spiritual world, and this is a very important point to understand, is that we all belong there. We're kind of exiles here. We're aliens. This isn't our home. But it's a reflection. It's Prabhupada's immortal phrase, perverted reflection, distorted reflection of the spiritual world. So just like, for instance, there's love in the spiritual world, friendship. Krishna has a wonderful, relationship with his friends. They go out to work every day, as cowherds, but they're really playing all day. The cows are eating the grass, and so there's all these wonderful pastimes, and it's just blissful. It's like there's no downside. Nobody gets older. They take their lunches out there, and they have lunch with Krishna and everything. Very beautiful. So there's also like Balboa Park. Balboa Park. Why is there this big park over there, and you go and you can walk and peaceful. It's not in the city street. Because that's what we're hankering for. We're hankering for nature. We're hankering for trees and breeze and fragrances and flowers and all of these wonderful things, So parks are part of civilization. If there's a city, there has to be a park. I used to live in New York, Central Park, huge. It's a lot of square miles right in the middle of that city, So anyway, but when we come to the material world, and above the intelligence is the ego, and in our case it's called the false ego because we're identifying with this body as ourself, and that's lesson number 1. We're not the body, right? Krishna says, his first words to Arjuna as the guru, because before he spoke as a friend, but then Arjuna said, we're not getting anywhere. There's this existential problem I have, whether I'm going to fight or not. So I surrender to you as a guru. And the guru, he's speaking with authority, and the shishya, the disciple, is listening and accepting. So it's changed the relationship. So the first words Krishna speaks in that relationship, Ashochanam Vashochastram Pragyabharam Shabashase. You're speaking like a pundit, because he was drawing on all these arguments from the Vedas why he shouldn't fight. But you're a fool, because you're lamenting for what's not worthy of grief, namely this body. The body will die today, tomorrow, or 100 years from now. It's gone. The soul is eternal. That's who we really are. But in our present state, where our spiritual qualities are dormant, because we're covered by the false ego, the false sense of self, and then the material body and the intelligence, everything has become infused with ignorance and this false sense of self, that I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. But factually, all that does is keep us bound to this world of birth and death and miseries. So we need to undergo a sea change, if you will, about who we are and what we are, and learn to act in that real identity. And that's why Bhakti Yoga is so systematic. Someone can walk in the door. I remember when I first came to the temple. Basically, they just wanted me to, be there in the kirtans and the classes and to take prasadam. They didn't ask me to really do anything. I didn't live in the temple. I had a job and apartment and everything, about a half an hour away. But gradually, as I read the books, I realized that, the real training is to become a servant. In other words, to really engage in some practical service for the Lord. So when I finally joined up, I remember distinctly one of my first jobs was to take out the trash, But I was really relieved to be out of the material world, And as I was taking the trash out, I was just singing Hare Krishna. It wasn't like, hey, I'm only getting paid, in those days, believe me, like $2 an hour was a lot. I'm only getting paid $100.50 an hour here for taking the trash out. Forget it. Take your job. No, because I wasn't doing it for that reason. I was doing it as a service for Krishna. So I was blissfully taking it. And the leader, or the temple commander, he wasn't even initiated yet. His name was Ben, Bhakta Ben. He was initiated shortly thereafter. He says, Tom, I think you're going to make it. Because I was singing and chanting while I was doing it. So the idea is that I was tasting the actual nectar of being in real relationship with Krishna and being who I really am as a servant of Krishna. Now, in the first stages, it's very fragile, and you could easily get into Maya. You sleep and you have some dream, and about your previous life. So there's a discipline, a regimen to get you, used to it. So what Krishna is doing here, he's drawing a contrast between material life, and if you recall that he went through, let's see, where are we now? So Arjuna asked the question in text 54, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk? So Arjuna's asking that question for our benefit. So we can begin to differentiate what is the spiritual activity and spiritual personality from an ordinary person, because we want to advance. So then Krishna starts describing that. And now we have to be aware that from 55 and a few verses later, he's describing a very high advanced devotee. And the first thing he says, Prajahati yada kaman. Kaman are the objects of the senses that you are very strongly attached to. It often, it's come to be, it's probably an English word now, kama, you can look it up. Because English just vacuums up words. There's French words, there's German words, and there's some Sanskrit words. So it doesn't just mean sex desire. It means anything that you're a powerful material desire. That's kama. So prajahati means to give those up. This is the characteristic of one who's fixed in transcendence. Sthita pragya. This is a word that keeps coming up at the end of the. Sthita pragya means transcendently situated, fixed. Gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arise from mental concoction, and the mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone. This is the key. Then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. It's not just a question of renunciation, it's also a question of accepting. You're replacing the material attachments with spiritual attachments, which are good and wholesome, which will take you back to Godhead. The more that we become attached to Krishna, Krishna's service, Krishna's deity, Krishna's devotees, all those things are not different from Krishna, they're spiritual, then we can more easily give up the material. So that's the idea. So he continues, and equipoised amongst difficult situations and allurements of the material energy. Vita raga bhaya krodha is a phrase that appears again in the Gita later on. Being free from attachment, fear, and anger, which result in materialism. Then he says, not affected by shubha and ashubham, as it's, what is this, good and evil. Evil here doesn't mean someone who's very non-virtuous, you know. It's not talking about demons. Evil here means, if you look it up in the dictionary, one of the meanings is one that causes distress or pain or something. That's why later on Krishna will say birth, death, old age, and is disease. Being aware of those is part of knowledge. And in the translation, the evils of birth, old age, disease, and death. Well, you know, birth isn't evil, you know, in that sense, but it's painful, you know, and so is death and disease and old age. So basically, one is very equipoised. Then he gives the example. You remember the creature that he compares the conditioned soul to when he draws his senses in. If he's not good, what's that creature? What is it? Turtle? Not the turtle. The tortoise. Now, who knows the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? The tortoise is on the land, and the turtle is in the water. But, you know, yeah. I mean, anyway, they, you know, for defense, they'll draw in. So the idea is, if there's nothing that, you know, Krishna conscious that you can do with your in a certain environment. Say there's nothing Krishna conscious to see. Don't try to become, you know, fascinated by something that's around. But the idea is that you can just walk down the street, and if you're conscious from the Gita, you're seeing your knowledge of, you can be seeing everything in relation to Krishna. Birth, what is it? Bhuma apa olavaya, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These 8 comprise my lower energies. And then in a few verses later he says, well, okay, and we're interacting with them. So rasoham apsakonte, I am the taste of water. I have the light in the sun. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the ability in man. I am the fragrance of the earth. He goes through all of these things. We experience them all the time, but we don't connect them with the divine. That's the idea. Oh, I remember Krishna says, I am the sun and the moon. Ah, I see the sunlight. This is Krishna's energy. It reminds you of Krishna. You're seeing the divine within everything. This is what we're meant to do. And when you do that, then your enjoying spirit is tamped down. Oh, this is Krishna's energy. You know, I can appreciate it for what it is. How fortunate I am. You know, it's cold out, but the sun is shining. Oh, I'm warm. Oh, thank you, Krishna, for keeping me warm. You know what I mean? You can feel, you can experience that way. So this is how we cultivate Krishna consciousness, even in our ordinary life. You don't have to go off to the Himalayas or anything. You don't have to live in the temple. But you can incorporate the knowledge from the Gita and the practices, chanting and other things. And then your whole vision of yourself in the world and the world itself changes. And this is how we progress in Buddhi Yoga. So now, what is Krishna doing? This we've gone through, and he's described how the senses are very strong and impetuous. This is in text 60. They forcibly carry away the mind even of a person of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So he's being very realistic here. But Tani Sarvani, someone who restrains the senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, Matpara, is known as a man of steady intelligence. And Prabhupada's giving so many wonderful examples in the purport here. So this is the contrast. Ordinarily, we're in some material mode of nature, and we're attracted to a certain set of sense objects, and some of them we can get, and we can say, oh, now I'm enjoying, but that's always temporary. And as Krishna says in the 5th chapter, and this is one of these verses that really makes you think. He says, Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukayona evate adyantabanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. He says the intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures that derive from the contacts of the senses with the sense objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not delight in them. So where do they get their delight? Where do they get their pleasure? That's the previous verse. Bhaya sparsheshu asaktatma. And this word sparsha is being used, touch. Now, of course, we have a sense of touch literally, but factually all the senses are kind of touching their sense objects, isn't it? You know, in a sense. If there's something cooking in the kitchen, but door is shut and you can't smell what it is. As soon as the door, the fragrance is attracting my intelligence, attracting my mind. You become giant. So there's a touch of all of them. So it's called sparsha. So bhaya sparsheshu asaktatma, not being attracted to the external contact of the senses with the sense objects. But this is describing how we should experience pleasure. Asaktatma vindat yatma yat sukham, but enjoying the pleasure by contacting the Lord within the heart. Vindati atma yat sukham. Sukham means happiness. Sabrahma yoga yuktatma. Brahma. Krishna is the supreme Brahman. We are the little Brahman. One of the first phrases in Sanskrit I learned when I moved into the temple, Aham Brahmasmi. Have you ever heard that one before? I'm spirit. It means I am Brahman. I am spirit. We're all Brahman. Krishna is Brahman, but he's Para Brahman. We're Anu Brahman. We're little tiny Brahman. But we're spirit. We're pure spirit, indestructible. So here he's saying, Sab Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. Yukta means linked. It's like yoga. So the soul linked with Brahman means Krishna, the Supreme Spirit in the heart. Sab Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. You enjoy unbreakable happiness. Material happiness is totally breakable. It may last a minute, it may last an hour, it may last a few days, but ultimately, it's just the way the material world works. Time just, So we don't want to get bewildered by that. We want to try to learn to experience that happiness that is unbroken. And that means spiritual. That means the individual spirit linking up with the Supreme Spirit in yoga or service. And spirit means person. We are spiritual persons. Krishna is the Supreme Spiritual Person. And by that link, beginning with the sound of the holy name, we can gradually learn how to always be in a state of happiness and bliss. Isn't that amazing? Because it's not bounded by time and it's not bounded by matter. Look at Prahlad. It's kind of a hair-raising situation. He's got this demonic father who's so powerful he conquers the whole universe. And here's Prahlad who's preaching Krishna consciousness to the demon, which is the last thing he wants to hear. So his father, first he orders, eventually he gets disgusted with him. He says, okay, kill him. Even he's a poison tree in the family, But Prahlad was taking shelter of Krishna. He's just a 5-year-old boy. But he's completely absorbed in Krishna. He's totally protected. And he remains equipoise, even though it's painful to recount, throwing him under an elephant, throwing him off a cliff, trying to pierce him with swords and poison and snakes and whatever they had. Didn't affect him. Not only wasn't he killed, he wasn't injured, and he wasn't freaked out. And his father got scared after all that. Here's this little boy, I can't affect him. Where'd you get your power from? And the same place you did, Father, from the Lord. The Lord, well, you said is Lord. I don't see any Lord. Is he in this pillar? Yes, Father. So he strikes the pillar with his fist, and out comes Nrsingadev. Half man, half lion, roaring in anger, fury, that his beloved Prahlad has been tormented by this nasty demon. And then this battle takes place. He's just toying with him, And then he puts him on his lap and rips him apart. We sing all the time. Here's something no one has heard. I heard Prabhupada sing it this way. This is a song, part of a song by Jayadev Goswami in a book called the Gita Govinda. Now the Gita Govinda is very famous for being a very, very exalted and refined and intimate book of Krishna, Radha and Krishna's. You know, we're not supposed to read that right away. But at the beginning, he has this song about the 10 appearances of Krishna. Not only in the Sringadev, but the fish incarnation, the boar incarnation, Buddha, Kalki. I think the 4 Kumaras come in there. That's part of the song. But we sing this one because Prabhupada wanted to give us this song and mantras about Nrsimhadev for the protection of the temple, the deities, the devotees, the spiritual master, and the whole movement. Because there's a lot of struggle, especially at the beginning of the movement. There's some stories I could tell you, especially about Bombay. You read the book, Giriraj Swami's book. So much opposition, violence, So the protection had to be. So after every arctic, we sing that. So the one by Jayadev is the last one we sing. Tavakala kamala vare na kaman bhuta shringam. And then really the way the Sanskrit is, and I heard Prabhupada sing it this way, Dalita hiranya kashipudana bringam. Now nobody sings it that way. Dalita hiranya kashipudana bringam. Right? Dalita hiranya kashipudana bringam. This is the way the Sanskrit goes. So Dalita means rip apart. And we have paintings like that. There's a big painting of him ripping apart, blood everywhere. And in LA, they hang it up on the wall. They didn't want us to put it on the wall because people get freaked out. What is this? Is this some kind of cult? Let me get out of here. But actually, the devotees are all very happy when the demons get killed, Nobody gets killed, nobody dies, but he sent him on his way. And this demon, Hiranyakashipu, happened to be, the backstory we're reading in the morning, is a devotee that was cursed on the board at the entrance to Vaikuntha, Manujaya Vijay. And anyway, it's a long story, but they prevented the Kumaras, the saintly Kumaras, from entering Vaikuntha. And the Kumaras were not yet devotees; they were Brahmavadis. They were fixed in Brahman, and they were curious about what's going on in Vaikuntha. They'd never been there, so they were prevented, and they became enraged. Devotees would, don't become enraged at that. So they became enraged and cursed this Jaya and Vijay to take birth in the material world. And Vishnu, Narayan, he heard the ruckus at the gate. This is at the gate of Vaikuntha. And he came toward the gate, and his feet were covered with tulsi manjaris. There's tulsi leaves, we know. But there's also little flowers that grow sometimes. And they have a unique fragrance. So that was all strewn on his feet, and as soon as they smelled that transcendental fragrance, it's described in the Bhagavatam, they were transformed from Brahmavadis, who are absorbed in Brahman, to actual bhaktas, and they felt terrible because here's these devotees in Vaikuntha that they cursed, and so and Vishnu had to tell them, no, don't worry, this is one of my master plans, to bring out the glories of Prahlad and all his instructions. And believe it or not, this is the way Prabhupada tells it, that Vishnu, he wanted to enjoy fighting. But there's no one in Vaikuntha to fight with. Even in Goloka, they can have mock fighting. Krishna, fights with his friends. But in Vaikuntha, everyone is very awe and reverence. There's no fighting. So some of his devotees have to go down and take on the role of demons so they can have a good fight. So he said, no, don't worry, this is all part of my plan. And they had 3 births. There's Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Now the names are also important to understand. Hiranyaksha means always looking for gold. The demons are always trying to. And he was so eager to get gold that he was mining from where is now Brazil. And he took out so much gold that he unbalanced the planet and fell into the Garbhodak ocean. And so this is a big serious thing. The earth is in the ocean now. So Lord Krishna appears as Varaha, a wild boar with a big horn, that's dangerous in the forest. And he went down there and rooted out the earth from the bottom of the ocean and brought it up and floated it on it. So, And meanwhile, it's Hiranyaksha's also in the ocean, mocking him and insulting him. And finally, when the earth was safely floating, there was a battle, and he killed Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu, his brother, was enraged. Oh, Hari, in the form of this boar, has killed my brother. So he wanted to kill Hari, which he couldn't do. And we're in that part of the Bhagavatam now. So we got a little far afield here, but let's explore now these verses that are coming up. This Dayato Vishayan Pungsa. This and 63 go together, and what we're reading here are how an ordinary person gets entangled in the material world and stays entangled. It starts with contemplating the objects of the senses. Unless you have the all-attractive personality of Krishna and his name, qualities, forms, and pastimes to draw your attention and relate with, then you're sure to become attracted to the reflection of those things. Whatever is beautiful or attractive in this world is only a little reflection of Krishna's and the spiritual world's attraction. You understand? It's like it's a pale reflection, but it's enough of it to keep us absorbed. Dhyayato means entranced, meditating on. And I always bring up the advertising. That's what advertising is all about. To try to get your interest, right? To plant a desire seed in your mind, so that the next time it comes time to buy coffee or something, I think I'll have this brand. You don't even remember, but it's subliminal. So this planting of desire seeds is going on all the time. So that's dhyayato vishayam. When we meditate on the objects of the senses, sangha develops. Sangha means attachment. And then the next phrase is actually taken alone, and it has a larger meaning. Sangat sanjayate kama. Sangha can also, it means two things. It means attachment, and it means association. That's where the famous sadhu sangha comes in, or satsang for short. All the Indians know about satsang, right? So satsang is short for sadhu sangha. It means association with sadhus so that you'll benefit spiritually. And it's all important. But here, it means association, sangat sanjayate kama, that you develop your desires according to your association. That's why responsible parents are always concerned with who are my kids associating with. And this is one of the disasters of cell phones, because that association can go on through there. The kids, maybe sitting in their bedroom, but they're associating with some craziness on the phone, and the parents are concerned about that. So this is a fact of the way consciousness works. When you associate with whatever it is, you become attracted to that, or you become repulsed. There's a effect, So sanjayate kamas, and here's like the development. You contemplate the objects of the senses, and that develops attachment, and from that attachment, kama is developing, the strong desire to engage with the thing. And when you eventually fail in that effort, or something happens negative, you're taken away, then you become angry, krodha, and that's the last part. These two verses actually go together. And so we should read the 63 and see there's a progression here that ends in buddhi nashat pranashyati, complete destruction, which is pretty heavy. All right, why don't we read 63, because they do go together. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti brangshad buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. Okay, so you may remember 62 ended with anger. When your desires to enjoy are frustrated, you become angry. Now there's also psychologically, if you can't express that anger, you turn it in and you become depressed. But one way or another, it's not good for you. So now what happens with krodha, when you're in krodha? From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Purport: Srila Rupa Goswami has given us this direction. Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunaha mumukshabi parityago vairagyam pogulkachyate. Bhakti Samhita Sindhu 1.2.256. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Now I should give a little translation of this verse, because Prabhupada is already explaining the verse in relation to bhakti. But what this is the description of the Mayavadis. And what I'll tell you what the words mean. Prapanchikataya, but prapanchikataya means seeing as material. Just as a dyed-in-the-wool Mayavadi may walk in here And so what are they doing? These bhaktas, they worship in the stone. It's just stone on the temple there, And there's on the other, they have wood, these idols, That's what they're seeing. So they have of seeing everything is material, even things that are purely spiritual. They see are material, which is a great offense. So seeing Hari Sambandhi Vastuna, those things Vastuna which are related to Hari, such as his prasadam, the deity form, the name, they're just an ordinary sound. This is this mantra. This is what the materialism. Mumukshubi, those who are after liberation, meaning in impersonalists. Liberation means the problem is all these diversities. You know that we have this prayer to Prabhupada. You may not know what it means. Nirvishesha shunyavadi paschata deshata. Tarine, he's delivering us from this nirvisheshavad. Nirvishesha means that the absolute truth has no varieties. There's no form, there's no name, all of these things, dancing, No. The ultimate is merging into Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti, the white light. No more body, no nothing, just pure consciousness, eternal consciousness. That's it. What a relief, huh? No more birth, no more death, no more mortgage payments. No, it's not fulfilling for us because as souls we're persons. We want to interact. Nirvishesha means no more variety. Prabhupada's saving us from that. And the other one is shunyavadi. Not shunya, shunya. Shunyavadi. Vadi means in a philosophy that everything is ultimately void. This is the Buddhist thing. That actually will be completely blissful when we cease to exist. It's very depressing to even think about it, when you know something about Krishna consciousness. Thank you, no thank you. So but the Mayavadis are nirvishesh. There's something out there. It's not a void, but it's just this pure white light called Brahman. That's our ticket, away from birth, old age, disease, and death. But it's a negative type of thing. It's like you're sick. You had an accident. You're in traction. For a month. Your leg is up there. When am I going to get out of the hospital? Get out of here. So finally, you're healed up. And you're able to get out of the hospital. And then is that your success? Then you can sit down on the curb and finally I'm out of the hospital. I'm perfect. No, you got to take up your previous life, right? And gradually get back into the routine. So our routine, our previous life is the spiritual world. We've been mucking around in the material world, frustrated because we can't be controllers, we can't really be enjoyers, and we forgot Krishna. You see? So, Prapanchikadaya thinking, having the intelligence that everything is material, Prapanchikadaya, even those things directly related to Hari, Mumukshabi, desiring just liberation. That's also Maya. Just I will be liberated, I'll be free. Parityago, giving up everything. Prasadam, the holy name, all this stuff. This is just those sentimental bhaktas. They need that as a crutch. But the real. I had some dealings with these Mayavadis before I joined, and it was like, oh yeah, the emotional Bengalis, they need that. But the real thing is Gyan, so that you can just know that you're not the body, that you're pure spirit, and then that's bliss. Parityago, giving up everything. Vairagyam palgukachate. But such vairagya is very weak. Is very weak because you're not replacing the material attachments with the spiritual attachments. You're just trying to repress the material attachments. You see that? So can you imagine how trying to be detached from all this variety of attractions in the material world without the holy name, without prasadam, without the deities, without the association, without the paintings and just you and your mind and your senses. I'm going to go out to the Himalayas. I'm just going to sit in the forest, No, it's not going to work. You read Radhanath Swami's book. He tried it, He came back to Vrindavan. So Polgu, but I think we've talked about this. Vairagya is very important. It means detachment. But this Polgu Vairagya means weak Vairagya. But for the devotees, what do? Anasakta Sibhishayan. Here's the companion verse to this in the Bhakti Samhita. Anasakta Sibhishayan yataham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Not Pulgu Vairagya, but Yukta Vairagya. So what that means, that verse means without attachment, anasaktasya. Vishayan, again the word Vishayan which appeared in the verse. Vishayan, the object of the senses. Without attachment to the object, engaging them in the service of the Lord. Just like, for instance, these clothes, you know, the beautiful deity outfits that they make, you know. So, I mean, I would never even want to be dressed that way, you know. But the whole idea is that, oh, you know, they're worthy of the wonderful decorations of flowers and everything, right? So, and it's a lot of engagement of the material things in the service of the Lord. All those flowers they have to buy, you know, and everything. The temple itself is an example of it. So, anasaktasya vishayan, without being attached to the object of the senses, but using them as appropriate in the service of the Lord. Yatarham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. And what this means is, you're not bound up by your attachment to those things because you're doing them in Krishna's service. You're attached to the serving Krishna with whatever is available. And if it's only some simple fruits and flowers, he accepts that if that's all you have in love. He says that in the 9th chapter, right? So, nirbandha, you're not bound. You don't want to stay free of material bondage because that'll bring you back again. Krishna sambandhe, but you get bound up in attachment to Krishna, which is what you want. Krishna sambandhe, this is called yukta vairagya. It's called detachment in yoga, and that's what we want. Detachment itself is not the ultimate goal, but it's a very important prerequisite. And knowledge and detachment go together. I always give this example. It's a little poignant now, but year after year, when Prabhupada's appearance day would come on, it's a very holy day, Vyasa Puja, right after Janmashtami, doesn't it? So then a lot of the old timers, there's fewer of them around than there used to be, but they would come in and cook the feast for Prabhupada. And one of the most dear was Madhusudan, who passed away, you know, over a year. And he would make the most exquisite sweet rice. Strawberry sweet rice, you know. And it was a big hit, you know. You put it in the cooler, and it's nice, the right temperature and everything, and then they would serve it out. So, visualize, you know, this is illustrating the principle of detachment through knowledge. Means that jnana and vairagya. So the sweet rice is coming out. Everyone is thinking, oh, okay, Madhusudan has made a sweet rice, and they've got the 4 pots, you know, ready to come down the lines. And then just as they're about ready to serve out the first cup, Madhusudan comes running in from the kitchen. Says, oh, Hare Krishna, I'm sorry. I put salt in instead of sugar. Oh. I'm not saying this once happened. This is just a way. So from that knowledge that the salt is in there, right, and in the sweet rice, immediately there's vairagya. It means that no one wants to drink it. They don't have any attachment. So it works in the same way in the material world. I mean, even on a mundane platform, you know, drugs, the scourge of drugs, you know, are still going on. So. But if you know before you get involved that it's going to destroy your life, it'll have this very deleterious effect on your brain and your consciousness and, you know, all this stuff. Then if you're intelligent, you'll refrain. Oh, I don't want to do that. You know, I don't want to get entangled in that. Yes, it sounds like it'll be fun, but no, it's not worth it. So the knowledge will give you detachment. That's the idea. And it works in the same way, you know, in a more dramatic way in devotional service. By hearing about how deleterious it is to become attached to material things because it ensures birth, death, old age, and disease. Like Lord Rishabdev. He's always, you know, he doesn't mince words. Lord Rishabdev is famous. So one of his says, Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pritiya apanoti. Nasada manye yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeha. Prabhupada quotes this verse all the time. The same theme. So Nuna means certainly. Pramatta are mad. Kurate vikarma, who perform vikarma, vicious activities against the Vedas, simply for the sake of indriya priti. That's sense gratification. Literally, that's what it means. Indriya priti, sense gratification. Certainly those people are mad who simply perform all kinds of vicious acts sinful activities for the sake of pleasing the senses, which is what's going on today everywhere. In Indriya apanopi, nasadu manya. I don't think it's a very good idea, in my opinion. Nasadu manya, because yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada. Although the engagement of the senses is temporary, it produces tremendous suffering. Asannapi kleshada. Kleshada means gives misery, both in this life and the next. It's sure to bring you back again, probably lose the human form of life. It's horrible. So he's saying it's a crazy thing to do. And if you understand the philosophy and the reality, it is crazy. But unfortunately, that's what happens in the material world. If you don't have a source of knowledge, if you're not trained, then you're at the mercy of the material energy and you'll be crazy. So he goes on to how to deal with that. Okay, so we're kind of running low of time here. All right, let's see. All right, let me read the number because that's a short purport. The solution to the whole issue is in this 64th verse. This is how the soul becomes degraded, loses its intelligence by becoming attracted to sense objects, becoming angry and desperate. But here's the antidote. Text 64. Raga dveshiva muktaistu vishayan indriyaischcharan atmavasha vadheyatma prasadam anigacchati. Now that word we recognize, prasadam. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Prasadam, that's prasadam here. Purport, it is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. Although a person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. Detachment here means aversion. I think I'm going to, because the opposite of attachment is not detachment. We want detachment. Detachment is good, but the aversion, raga and dvesha. Dvesha means aversion. It's the opposite, but it's just as bad as attachment. Okay. Has no attachment, where is it? If Krishna wants. The devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable, and if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not to act is within his control because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform. In other words, even though we may be attached to so many things, if we accept the regulative principles of freedom, and those are the positive principles of when you get initiated, what do you vow to do? You have 5 vows, right? You have chant 16 rounds a day, and then to abstain from illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. Those become, that could be difficult at first. Maybe not all of them equally difficult. There's 4 regulative principles, and there are 5. One of them is positive. Chant 16 rounds a day. But the regulative principles are commonly called these 4 things you refrain from. In this particular verse, the regulative principles of freedom include the 5 things. So you can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. In other words, one can become free, vimukta, of raga and dvesha by even while surrounded by the objects of the senses. In other words, you don't have to go off to the Himalayas so you won't be tempted. You can be right here in Pacific Beach, somebody in the middle of Kali Yuga. But Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and you're worshiping the deity, and you've taken the vows, so so therefore you can become strong enough, and at a certain point, I wouldn't drink a glass of wine if you know, for $100, $1,000, maybe $1 million. I wouldn't. give it to Krishna. No, but the point is, there's no temptation. There's no desire. Oh no, I got to have my liquor. But someone who's an alcoholic, no way. You know, you got to hold them down practically. You know. So that's the power of Krishna consciousness. The regular principle of freedom includes all those things, do's and don'ts, to be Krishna conscious. And then, you know, it doesn't take long before you can actually be renounced. Everybody who, you know, lives in the temple, even for some time, it's hard to sustain it over decades and decades. It takes seriousness, you know. But so many devotees have come and they've benefited, and it's there in their bank account. But you could actually, you know, if you find a service that's fulfilling, you can remain fixed, and you're on the way back to Godhead. Depending how serious you are, you can go back in one lifetime or maybe two. But how many millions of lifetimes have you been mucking around in this material world? Hare Krishna. All right, it's getting a little late. I'll give you a real short poem. This is the Krishna conscious movement in a nutshell. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship Him with all your heart. Follow His instructions, and to others them impart. That's the whole thing. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribo. We'll reconvene on Monday. Hare Krishna. Yes. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship Him with all your heart. Follow His instructions, and to others them impart.
That's like that.
Can make a T-shirt out of that. Can make a T-shirt out of that.
You could.
They actually made one out of one of my things. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna supreme, the aim is prem, and the way is the name. Well, I gave that in a class one time in New Vrindavan. Radhanath Swami was there. He said, "Oh, give me that. I might use it in a class." I'm like, Hare Krishna. Yeah, I have a bunch of those. So it must be a special holiday that you're here, Jesse. You've been so long. You haven't been to Bhagavad Gita class. Oh, busy, huh? So you're on vacation now?
Actually, I was on vacation for a couple of weeks with my mom, but just the baby.
Oh yeah. It's a big,
things in our lives, and it's just.
yeah, that's a lot of.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of energy. Anyway, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's still good to be here.
Still going strong. Been more than 34 years here.
34 years here?
Yeah, I came in '89.
What month?